Hackers love a challenge.
Hey parents, Carmine here with your video review of Watch Dogs 2. Possibly minor spoilers up ahead. It shouldn't be anything serious, but some of the footage may come from the mid to later ends of the game. Watch Dogs 2's campaign very loosely follows the history of internet hacktivism, taking elements from real events like Anonymous's fight against the Church of Scientology, up to Julian Assange and WikiLeaks to Edward Snowden. All of the real elements are jumbled up in the narrative that the developers want to portray, this constant fight against the Bloom Corporation and CTOS. But the heart of the matter is something that is extremely relevant for all of us, especially you watching this video right now. Our personal information is everywhere on the internet. What you watch, what you say, what you believe, what you do, the things you buy, the places you visit, the people you trust, we give all of that up online all of the time. Walking down the virtual streets of San Francisco in Watch Dogs 2, looking at the brief snippets of information that this game gives you about random civilians, you're privy to some very sensitive information. And yeah, it's a game and some of the random snippets of information are funny, but imagine if you had this information at your fingertips in real life. Imagine if you knew everyone's career and their salary and their search history. How would your view of people change knowing that information? Imagine if you knew that your friend's dad had cancer, or that your neighbor's spouse was unfaithful, or that your teacher was addicted to gambling, or that your pastor was $50,000 in debt. The internet knows all of these things. Heck, half the time we post these things willingly on Facebook. But at the core of it all, Watch Dogs 2 is an attempt to get you to look at what you do and to try and protect yourself. Because buying that bag of chips or drinking an energy drink is a pretty harmless act until your health insurance company finds out and starts increasing your premiums as a result. It sounds far-fetched, but it's not. Car insurance companies already increase your rates based on your zip code. Your credit, and as a result, a lot of your purchase history is available online at the click of a button. Your phone number is listed online, and it's easy to find. Cyberstalking, doxing, swatting, all of this stuff is real. It happens all the time. Watch Dogs 2 is just pointing out the obvious. Now, the trick with most of the mature content in this game is that it's not really extremely obvious, with the exception of language, something I'll discuss in a moment. Even though the main characters are all really nerdy hackers, the gameplay requires that they get out from behind their screens and do some field work occasionally. This almost always results in some sort of violence. If hits from weapons resulted in blood, it was extremely difficult to notice, and there was never any gore at all. There was definitely blood in the environment for certain specific missions, but it was not a prominent factor. Overall, the most noteworthy thing about the violence is how immersion-breaking it was. I had a hard time believing that my hacking sleuth of a character would know how to effectively use automatic shotguns and assault rifles. It was a pretty minor thing overall, but I tended to like sticking with the stun guns and melee attacks until it was absolutely necessary. This game never penalized me nor rewarded me for picking the non-violent route, so for some missions I snuck around without killing anyone. Things get a bit more complicated for Sexuality and Substance Use. The game used to have female characters fully modeled, and by this I mean that if you found a character with a skirt and knocked her over, you could see up her skirt, and there wasn't any underwear. This was patched out of the game very quickly, so it's not a factor anymore, and as a result I'm not including it in the rating. Male characters are supposedly still fully modeled though, so if you can find a random character that's urinating somewhere, you can see his bits. But I looked for an example for hours and couldn't find anything. Outside of this, Marcus does wake up with a mostly naked woman in his bed after a long night of partying, but her back is to the camera and she never turns around. There are pot farms that can be found around the environment, and the game does mention that some of the local gangs deal in distribution of narcotics of all sorts. There is also a cutscene where the main characters consume what is probably magic mushrooms, and they trip pretty hard as a result. A lot of the characters drink beer in cutscenes, and the player can drink beer at pretty much any time by going to one of the local bars in the game, but it didn't seem to have any effect on anything from a gameplay perspective. Now, the trick with both Sexuality and Substance Use is that while what I described is pretty much it for gameplay, the local civilian population has some elements that escalate these categories. There are plenty of conversations where people discuss using and dealing drugs. You can find out which civilians are prostitutes and how much they make. You can find out people's internet search histories, which sometimes gives up some extremely risque information. There's a lot of extra content out there that falls into these two categories, some of which I've definitely missed, but the trick is that you're getting a glimpse into these people's private lives. Of course, the information you find is going to include some very private and mature elements. That's how people are in real life. I'm not saying that the content would be appropriate for kids of all ages, but these elements are a key part of the message that the game is trying to communicate, and as a result, I can't grade it too harshly for that. Language is a different matter entirely, though.
Oh, you want the precious pros to adore you? Not on my fucking watch. Fuck!
As you can hear, it's off the charts in this game. Characters swear in nearly every conversation. It's not so grating that it's obnoxious, but I struggled to find any conversations that were clean enough to repeat in polite company. If language isn't an issue for you, I'd give this game a recommended age of 14 years old. However, if language is a factor, I'd consider this game to be at least 16. As a side note, a friend of mine asked if they should play the first Watch Dogs before starting this one. For those of you who have similar questions, I do recommend that you play the first one first. It's not a perfect game, but I found the hacking in it to be much more useful and commonly usable than what I experienced in this game, and to me that's the thing that makes Watch Dogs stand out against its competitors like Grand Theft Auto, Saints Row, and Sleeping Dogs. I'm taking a quick break from AAA titles to work on games like Unravel, but I'll be back on the AAA bandwagon soon enough. Have a Merry Christmas, everyone, and a Happy New Year.